Hi, this is Regina Favors with Overcoming Setback Inspiration, and I want to talk about 1 Corinthians 10:12. Therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. And I am assuming that you have dealt with some failure in your life, right? And you can define the failure in the way that you want to define the failure. But I usually define failure in terms of missing some sort of instruction that I could have obeyed in order to not fail, right? If you think about a course analogy, there are elements of the course that oftentimes require a completion grade, and then there are elements of the course that require an actual letter grade. And of course, there are courses that require just a passing grade as well. But the elements of the course that require a letter grade on each of the tests or papers or anything like that, you have to pass those courses. Those elements. So that means for those elements, you can't just skim. You can't skim the course text. You have to attend the lecture. You can always tell when you have received a bad grade, why you received that bad grade. A lot of times it's because you missed classes, because you didn't read the textbook, because you didn't do what it was that you were instructed to do. And when you are thinking about failure in terms of being able to overcome that failure to get out of your current setback, you're going to have to remind yourself that it is possible for you to fall. And that is something that we don't plan for. We do not plan for failure. We plan for success. And sometimes we don't always plan for success, but we do, but we hope and have faith so much to the point that we just know it's going to happen. But the failure part of it is not knowing all of the elements around you. That it is possible a friend could come along and ask you to invest in him or her, and then when you do, it turns out to be the wrong thing to do because the friend didn't give you all of the information up front. You can decide to go into a joint venture, a business venture, just because you got some extra money. But even though the extra money would help with startup costs, you are still missing the knowledge necessary to carry out the business, meaning that you haven't taken an accounting class, you haven't taken a business law class, you don't know how to read contracts, you don't have a business plan, let alone an effective business plan. You don't know your financials. So you can start the business, and everyone loves to start stuff, but they don't know how to endure. And if you think you are standing just because you are doing well in one area, you should take heed because you can fall in another area. You know, there's a difference between having a job and being a job owner, in a sense, right? A person who owns his or her business. That the person who has a job is the person who clocks in, clocks out, clocks in, does their work, does what he or she is told to do, instructed to do, supervised to do, managed to do, and then they clock out. And they don't have to worry about the job once they leave the grounds, right? But then there's the person who, and then with that person, they only know what they know based upon what they have been assigned to do. So if they are the data entry clerk in the accounting department, they only need to care about data entering of accounting payables or accounting receivables or something like that, right? But then you have the person who is a job owner. And remember, just because you start a company, create a company, does not necessarily mean that you are an entrepreneur yet. You're just a person who owns your own job. So then with you are clocking in and clocking out metaphorically, But you are now all those different things that that are inherent in a company hierarchy. So now you are your own HR. You are your own accountant. You are your own business strategist. You are your own technologist. You are the business planner. You are the communications director. You are all those individual things. And that's what people don't always take into consideration when they are starting something, so to speak, right? That they don't take into consideration all of the elements that are going to that they're going to have to learn in order to support their particular role, right? If you are entering a job and you want to become a supervisor or manager or director, any place in the hierarchy, if you want to get into middle management, just because you do well at the entry level and you have been a supervisor and a coordinator and you did well as a manager does not necessarily mean you're going to do well as a director, because that's a different type of thinking. The director is one step down from upper management. And so that means you are now getting into higher levels of thinking about how to run the company, how to manage the company, how to manage the customer base, customer engagement, as well as all of the dealings that you would have to deal with in terms of upper management. So it's high stakes as you move up. And when you are thinking about moving up, you need to take heed lest you fall, because failing and falling are always possible. That's why we have gravity. Failing and falling are always possible. And so I think you should take heart in the idea that not everybody fails or falls so badly to the point that they can't get back up, but everyone has suffered some sort of setback in their lives. And it's usually because they missed something. They did not get the instruction. They did not plan well. They did not prepare well. They assumed that once they got to wherever they got to, that they were going to do just fine, not understanding that there was a season of preparation that they should have taken in order to do well once they got to wherever it is that they got to. It's like the person who is a medical student. They have all their education at the undergraduate level, then they go to medical school, then they do specialty training, they do residency training, because eventually they're going to have to be a doctor. They're going to have to perform and conduct themselves as a doctor. And if they don't pay attention to all those different levels and years and courses and time and instruction, once they get to the doctor level where they are now not necessarily supervised, if they don't have all of the preparation leading up to that, they're going to fail. They could lose their license. They could be sued for malpractice. And if you see that happening, it is because they missed something. And they assumed that they would never fail, that they would never fall. And you can take any example that you have heard in recent news or anything like that that best helps you to understand what I mean here. Lastly, in terms of marriage, I've never been married. I have shacked before, but I've never been married. But I realized, even in my own previous experiences with shacking, that I didn't think that the relationship was going to fail. In fact, I thought the relationship that was going to convert into marriage. And I should have taken heed to the fact that the person was not the marrying kind. I shouldn't have shacked in the first place, but it would have helped to have a conversation with the person to see if they were the marrying kind before I engaged in any type of way, in any type of area, in any type of season. So, overcoming setback inspiration. Therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. Thank you very much for listening to this audio.